Hey guys, my name is Nadia Struiwigh. I'm an artist from the Netherlands. I'm happy to be here today with Adam Audio, and we talk about my musical journey and also about my live set. So music clicked for me, I think, when I was around 18. I knew a lot about music already, and it was something I was breathing, and I could see things and all that stuff. When I walk on the streets, I hear all the time music. I hear and I see music, I hear movements and maybe more than that, you know, the rhythms and the compositions. We didn't have any musical instruments at home, and I didn't grow up with that, but I was always so interested by keyboards. I always had a thing with keys and how they correspond with like notes and how we can combine them and make chords, and you know, but I never did something with that. So when I was 18 and I was getting in that rave state and, you know, hearing all these amazing tunes and compositions, and it sort of clicked that I could make it myself, you know, and that was just on a later age. So I grew up in the south of Holland actually, and very farmer, kind of like in front of the forest and a lot of space. And then I always said like, I really need to go to the city. I'm a city girl, you know. And then I went to Rotterdam. I lived in Rotterdam for like 10 years. I skipped so much school and then I went there to practice music, and there was my teacher. My teacher is called Astru, and yeah, she did so much for me. I met her when she had to play in like the south of Holland, and I was young and I was always raving and I was, yeah, like literally always partying, and I saw her and I was like, wow, it's a woman and she did her thing, and I was sort of mesmerized by what she did. In that time there was a social platform called Hives. So I wrote her and like a very long message, I still remember, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna press send, and then she was like, yeah, you know, if you want to know more about it, step by, which was very rare for a touring artist like her. And yeah, I just came there and I practiced music, and you know, it became a lifestyle. So how everything evolved from when I lived in Rotterdam and how I expanded myself was basically, you get more and more gigs, right? So people will see your face more, and I was working by day still. So I always said to myself, I will not give up my day job before I know that this thing could be real, you know? And I still remember my dad always said like, oh, this is a hobby, you know, like this will stop one day. And I was like, no, this is a real thing, you know. I live and breathe music. I knew that since I was a child. So actually, yeah, I played more gigs, and then I was a lot of times on social media as well, because that was sort of my job next to music, basically. And then you suddenly started to see like a little shift in, like, I always said like my email inbox is always the best reference. If my sounds email becomes more than my info, you know, info was graphic design and social media, then I know like something is changing, and that was actually happening. So I worked less and less. From 4 days went to 3 days to 2 days, and then my music became more and more and more. And that was actually really natural how that, yeah, evolved. And if I think back, it's a bit of a blur, because everything, I just lived it, you know. I did work by day, in the night making music, and that each day. So I gave up a lot. So in the past, I worked a lot for companies, and I was doing graphic design and social media. And it is funny because I was always doing it for others, you know, and I was helping to grow their business. And I really love it because in the social media kind of world, there is an element of community and about getting to know other people and expanding, and also you learn so much there, you know. And there are like many ways of being on social media. You can use it for personal usage, but you can also use it as a tool, you know. When I was in Australia, things evolved more into the online world, right? We were all at home, and I was thinking, okay, what can I still do and be still connected with people from the other side of the world? And be in touch with the electronic music scene, because from my feeling in Europe, this is sort of a heaven, you know, like you can find so much here for electronic music. And I started to be on Twitch, so I was starting to stream, and I said to myself, I'm gonna get up at 7 a.m., gonna stream at 8 for 3 hours, and it was about music production. And from that you get content, and you can put it on YouTube or Instagram, and yeah, I got to learn a lot about video editing, and suddenly everything was sort of falling like puzzle pieces in each other, like things I've learned in the past, things who I am as a person, and I can't really find someone that is having that kind of path, but I'm just gonna create that path. This should be a bit less cut off, otherwise you can't even hear it. I love this so much. I get goosebumps. So when I was streaming on Twitch, so I did that music production stuff, and for a lot of people it would be very like, I can't concentrate on typing, chatting with people and making music. But for me, I sort of can, and I'm so quick in making music because I have so many ideas that for me it was really easy to just make music and then laughing a bit on the other side and then like making music again, and then they gave feedback, and then, you know, we were creating together, you know. So I was never a big collaborator, and I still am not, but in that way it was so much fun. So I was just uploading knowledge on Instagram, sharing my gear, sharing how I work, sharing jams, connecting with other people, and I loved it. You know, it was, for me, it has never been about, look at me, this is who I am, this is my selfie, this is this. It's for me about connecting, you know, and I think if we start to see a little bit more of how you can use it instead of abuse it, it becomes way more healthy. I guess there are a lot of expectations and thoughts about the usage of social media, and I know and I feel, not only me but also others, that we can have a lot of pressure by being on there. And the fun thing is that I realized that we create that own pressure. These days you see a lot of artists grow their social medias and they got picked up by maybe big labels or anything like that, and I think the worst thing of that part is that we compare ourselves to those people. So I'm very impulsive poster, you know. I just think and I post it and I don't think about it. And I think that's the key to social media. Don't think too much about it. Don't feel too much personal towards it, because if you do that, then there's a big chance you disappoint yourself the whole time because you can't make up to those expectations you have. But if you use social media just like that, detach yourself from that, like emotionally, you will not have that up and down. You know, you will just see it, it's a tool, I can use it. And for me, it's in a fun way. It's also a diary. If I look back to all these photos one day, I can make maybe a photo album and like, oh, that was cool, you know. I can be very blunt, you know. I say always what I think, I say always what I feel, because I'm not so much afraid for what I get back right now. But when I started off, that was totally different. So I learned a lot from comments, from posts and the posts I did. And, you know, there were moments, there was a whole day I could be very in my head about it. And I was like, oh, I did it not good. But I learned from this in Australia. When I was surfing, I was terrible. And I was all the time like, swimming between those others, and I felt so bad and like, oh my goodness, I'm all the time in spaces of other people. And then I thought they all had to learn that as well, you know. We all need to learn, and it is not easy to be out there, you know. It's not easy to be with your face on the camera. So yeah, I started to be milder on myself, like easier, like, okay, you know, you're learning from comments, you're learning from yourself, and it's all good. So when I started creating my live set, I found out that I had some issues with understanding the rootings of, example, how do you mix all these devices and get one sound, like the stereo output, through to an audience? Like, how does that work? So I had to dive it in myself. Like, YouTube was in that time not as big as it was now. If you really want to know more about music production or the sound of it or synthesis or anything like that, I think if you are able to maybe even go to a music store, which I did back in the days, you can learn so much. There are always people that want to help you, and you know, they know a lot there, you know, that's why they're there. And YouTube as well. I think that's such a great time now, you know, that we all can find little nuggets and little techniques on YouTube for ourselves. I still believe in digital and analog, a combination of them both. So I'm running Ableton and I'm using a lot of different devices, as you can see around me. And that grew over time. Oh, if I talk about my favorite piece of gear, you will see there's like almost the joy comes in my eyes because I love it so much. So right now I have a table with a whole setup, and I'm using, like for example here I have 2 groove boxes, and I had a third one actually. And it's made by Korg. They're very old school. I think they come from 2000 or something. So it has a drum part, but also a synth part. And in the synth part you can use, for example, different waveforms, but there are also some emulations like a piano or kalimba. It has a 16-step sequencer, so you can run loops of 8 bars basically, and you can record the motion and yeah, I don't know, I have so much love for that thing. And it has tubes, like valves, and when you crank them up, like it has that warm saturation. Then I have the native instruments machine. It's also drums, but also I can use synths and melodies or sequences running. And then I have an OP1 from Teenage Engineering, and with that I can actually capture samples. That's how I work. And then I have also external effects. That's the Strymon Big Sky, which is a reverb, always using reverbs. And the hologram microcosm, which also really makes a really cool looping sound out of the original sound. So you can run any sound through those effects. I think I'm quite old school, so I'm using a lot of times only the stereo output of devices or from my mixer at the moment. But I have a multi-track mixer, so I can also capture each channel separately and then I can mix it afterwards. But I love the tape things. You can't change it. It's just, I have to work with the audio that's there, basically. So right now I have the audio output connected to my mixer, and through the mixer there are buses, and with that you can use the audio effects that I have there. And you can run the audio through those buses, so it includes basically the effects on it. And then for my mixer, I'm using the stereo output or the multi-track via USB, and it goes into my DAW. And then via the sound card, I have connected the monitors. I'm using a lot of times as reference like my monitors and my headphones, so I'm always swapping them all the time. The best word for those speakers are accurate. I felt they were really accurate in the sound they produced. Before that I had different speakers, and I still remember the change of the sound in my productions. Well, thank you so much for watching this, and if you have any questions, just like reach out to me. I'm, as I said, always on my Instagram or anything, and I look forward to hearing from you.